In this video we're gonna destroy this enemy game object. We're gonna give some health, something like 5 unit, and it will destroy and show up the explosion effect before destroying itself. Okay, so without further delay, let's dive into this topic. Okay, so what we're gonna do now, we're gonna give some health to our enemy. Okay, we're gonna give some health to our enemy. So go to assets. Okay, right click, create C# script, name that script to enemy health. Okay, and select the enemy and drag that script. Okay, I already have created enemy health script, so I'm just gonna drag it into add component section. Okay, at component section, and attach this enemy health script to enemy game object. Okay, so double click that and open up in Visual Studio. Double click it that and open up in Visual Studio. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna delete this start and update function. We don't need this, and also these two namespaces in the top we're gonna get remove. Okay, we're gonna make it public so we can see in the inspector, and the type of that will be integer value 1 2 3 4 like that, and we're gonna call something like max health enemy. By default you can give some health to like 5 unit or like that, so I'm gonna give 5. Okay, and we're gonna make a take damage function. Okay, take damage function for enemy, it will subtract from our max health by some unit. Okay, let's suppose so we're gonna make that public, so we're gonna call this take damage function through another script. Okay, that's why. So we're gonna make it public, and we have to type void for function, and we're gonna call something like take damage. Okay, take damage, take damage, and we're gonna pass an argument which will be integer. Okay, we're gonna replace this by the way later, something like 1. Okay, so let's we're gonna, what we're gonna do, we're gonna subtract from our max health this damage amount. Okay, so let's suppose we pass the damage parameter as 1. So max health, as you know, if we call this take damage function for the first time, max health is 5, so 5 minus 1 will be 4. If we call second time, this will be 4 minus 1 will be 3. If we call third time, so 3 minus 1 will be 2. If we call fourth time, okay, 2 minus 1 will be 1. So if we call fifth time, 1 minus 1 will be 0. Okay, so it somehow hit will hit 0. Okay, so what we're gonna do, let's suppose we already have max health 0, so we are still trying to subtract. As you can see, if we call this function one more time, okay, if max health is 0, so 0 minus 1 will be minus 1, which will go to negative value. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna check if our max health is already 0, so we're gonna not call this line. Okay, so it will stack in the 0. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna check if max health is lesser than or equal to 0. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna return. Okay, return basically means after return this line max health minus equal damage or don't will not be execute. Okay, so so if we already hit 0, 0, so 0 minus 1 will be minus 1, but this line won't get called because we already returned it. As you can see, we type return. So we're gonna call this function. Whenever we gonna call this function, it will subtract from our max health by damage parameter damage. So we're gonna pass, let you can pass anything like that, but I'm gonna pass as a damage argument 1. So max health minus equal will be for the first time if we call this function. So for max health we set by default 5, and 5 minus 1 will be 4. As a damage argument, I'm gonna pass 1. Okay, so if we call the first time, see the so the max health will be 4. Okay, control S on your keyboard to save this, and head again to Unity, and we're gonna call that function from our player script. Okay, whenever the player attack to enemy, we will call that function. Okay, so we have created circle around this player attack point. Okay, and if that circle colliding with our enemy layer, enemy will take damage. Okay, so we will call this call that take damage enemy take damage function through our player attack script. So just wait for to compile and select the player. Okay, select the player and double click to open up in Visual Studio. As we can see, we have created this player script. Okay, we have created this player script over here. As you can see, we made this attack to public because we are we are calling this function through our animation. Firstly, what we are doing, we are drawing a circle. Physics 2d dot overlap circles draw will create a circle, our attack point dot position with attack radius. By attack radius, as you can see, we set 1.2 unit, but we made it public so we can adjust in the inspector. Okay, and layer mask, as a layer mask we have passed the enemy layer. Okay, so the circle over here, so the circle over here, if the circle is colliding with the enemy layer, okay, this will be true, so the overhead will be true. If it is true, so what we are doing, we are destroying the hit dot game object, as you can see. So if the circle is colliding with our enemy layer, so the hit over here will be true. So basically this function will be true, so that's why hit will be true. We are directly setting it, so that's why. So if hit is true, we are directly destroying that game object. Basically we will obviously destroy the play enemy game object. Okay, we will collide with enemy layer, but instead of destroying game object right away, we firstly enemy will take damage. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna get the player script component of the player, sorry, player enemy health, sorry, enemy. We will get we will and take the enemy health script. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to go to hit and we're gonna get the component. As we know, enemy has enemy health attach, health script attach script. As you can see, if I select the enemy, as you can see, enemy health script attached to our enemy game object. So we're gonna get this enemy health script. Okay, firstly, and by this we will take we will access this take damage function of enemy. Okay, and so if we go to enemy health, as you can see, we will access this take damage function. That's that's why we made it public. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna get the component, and the component type is enemy health. Okay, enemy health, obviously we will collide with enemy, so we will get this firstly we're gonna get this enemy health script. Okay, then by this we're gonna access the, we're gonna call that take damage function. Okay, as an argument damage parameter you can pass 1 2 3. So as I told you, I'm gonna pass 1. Okay, you can pass any value like that. So we will subtract by 1 unit from our max health, enemy health. Okay, so firstly what we are doing, we are going to hit. Okay, then we are we are getting the enemy health script. Okay, by enemy health script we are accessing the take damage function. Basically we calling the take damage function. Okay, if we call 5 times, so the max health of enemy will be 0. Okay, so control s on your keyboard to save this and head again to unity. Okay, head again to unity, you will able to see that. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna destroy the enemy game object. Okay, when he hits the enemy health becomes 0. Okay, when the enemy health becomes 0, so we also need to call this function. Okay, enemy player attack function, we are not calling over here, as you can see. So we also need to call this function, and this function will handle this thing. Firstly it will it will check if the circle is colliding with enemy layer or not. If that is the case, if the circle is colliding enemy layer, so firstly we are getting the enemy health script from our enemy, and then we are calling this take damage function. And as you know, if we call that take damage function, it will subtract from enemy health by 1 unit. As you can see, we pass 1 as a argument. Okay, so we also need to call this function. Where are we calling? If we go to player, okay, if we go to player and then animation tab, if we select this attack 1 or attack 2, as you can see, we are calling that function attack. Firstly, for what we are going to player attack, and then methods basically function, and we are calling this attack function, as you can see. So and then attack function will firstly check out if the circle is colliding with the enemy layer or not. If that is the case, if the circle is colliding enemy layer, so enemy we are calling that take damage function from enemy health. Okay, so take damage function will subtract from enemy health by 1 unit. So when Okay, so what we're gonna do, we are calling from there. Okay, we are calling that player attack function from this animation, as you can see. Okay, so what we, so select the enemy, and if we hit play, we will able to see when the player attacks the enemy. And as you can see, we assign, so we also need to assign, we forgot to assign this enemy as a enemy layer. Okay, so we need to assign first. Okay, so if we select the player, as you can see, as a layer marks, we have chosen the enemy layer, as you can see. So we will only target the enemy layer. So what we need to do, select the enemy, we need to assign this enemy as a enemy layer. So what we need to do, go to inspector, in the right you can see layer with selected default. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna assign this layer as a enemy layer. Basically we are assigning the enemy game object as a enemy layer. Okay, so hit that default and add layer and name that something like enemy. I already have named that. Okay, head over to again that game object and assign that layer as a enemy. Okay, and know this object. So after doing that, who hits override and apply all, it will change in the prefab as well. Okay, so now we have assigned it enemy as a enemy layer. And if we go to player script, as you can see, we are layer mask, we have passed the enemy, so we will only target the enemy layer. Okay, so if we select the enemy and if we hit play, and if we like attack enemy, so enemy will lose out from one unit from max health, because we created that max health, max take damage function. Okay, so if we one time, as you can see, max health become 3. If we attack once again, okay, it's become 2. If we hit once again, it's become 1, and then it goes to 0, but it will stuck in the 0 because we are returning. Whenever the max health already becomes 0, we are basically returning. If we go to enemy health script, as you can see, we are returning. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna destroy the game object whenever we reach the max health 0. Okay, basically we're gonna destroy the enemy game object. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna do it update function. Okay, we're gonna do it update function. As you know, sorry, update function. Okay, we're gonna do it update function, and as you know, update function calls every single frame. Okay, so that's why we are gonna do it update function. We need to keep track of every single frame if the max health is 0 or not. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna check if max health, okay, if max health is lesser than or equal to 0. Okay, if that is the case, what we're gonna do, we're gonna destroy the game object itself, basically in enemy game object. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a separate function. Okay, so we have to type void, and we're gonna call it something like die. Okay, and you have to make this first bracket and these curly brackets. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna destroy the game object. Before destroying, we're gonna print out the name, if the player health is 0 or not. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna print out a message. Okay, debug.log. So we have to type this. So what we're gonna say, something like player diet, something like that. So so we're gonna call this function over here, and we set it void die. Basically we haven't assigned anything like public, private, so by default it's became private function. Okay, so we're gonna also need to call this function, we're gonna call it over here. Okay, if the max health reaches 0, okay, if the max health reaches 0, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna call this function die. Okay, we're gonna call this function die, and the die function will print out the message debug.log player diet, as you can see in the console. Okay, so we are calling over here, if the max health becomes 0, we are calling the die function, and die function will print out this message debug.log. Okay, control s on your keyboard and head again to Unity. So we have to select the console and hit play. Whenever the enemy max health becomes 0, it will print out the message in the console says player died, something like that. Okay, just wait for to compile and you will able to see that. So just wait for to compile, and if we select the console, okay, if we select the console and if we hit play, sorry, if we hit play, we will able to see that whenever we attack the enemy 5 times, as we know we set max health of enemy by 5 units. So if we hit 5 times, it will goes to 0, max health goes to 0, will goes to 0. So one time, as you can see, max health became 3, then 2, then once again 1, and then 0. So whenever it hits 0, as you can see, player tired message popping out multiple times, because we are doing it update function. And as you know, update function get call every single frame, so that's why this message printing out multiple times. So what we're gonna do, instead of printing out message, we're gonna destroy this game object. Okay, we're gonna destroy this game object. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna destroy this game object instead of, so we have to use this destroy function. Okay, and we have to pass the game object you want to destroy. So we want to destroy this game object itself. So what we have to do, this dot game object. Okay, this dot game object. But before destroying this, what we're gonna do, we're gonna show a particle effect or something like explosion, something like that. Okay, so we're gonna show up that. So firstly we need to create this, control s on your keyboard to save this and head again to unity. Okay, so we need to make that explosion. So I so just wait for to compile, and we're gonna make that. Okay, just wait for to compile. Just wait for to compile and you will able to see that. So if we go to project, okay, project, and I have sprites, those I need to find those sprite over here I have. So I'm gonna drag it first one. So as you can see, it's pretty small. So what we need to do, we need to make the pixel per unit less, so it will be larger. So select all of them, make pixel per unit to 16, something like that. Okay, and filter mode to point no filter select. Okay, because it is pixel art. Okay, and also compression to choose none. Okay, after doing this, hit apply, you will able to see. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna rename this to explosion, something like that. Okay, explosion, and hit enter. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna create the animation. Okay, so select all of the images. Okay, select all of the sprites and drag it into the explosion. Okay, it will create the animation. So, and we're gonna place the animation to our animation folder. Firstly we need to go to assets, and we have created this animation folder, and we will create a subfolder, and we're gonna name it, right click, name for create a folder, something like effect. Okay, hit enter, and we're gonna place this animation to that effect folder. Okay, and we're gonna call it something like explosion. Okay, we're gonna call it something like explosion, and hit enter. Okay, and if we go to animation tab, and if we play the uh, now if we play the animation, as you can see, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna make prefab of this animation, basically copy of that object. So if we lost from this in view, we won't able to restore that. So why we're gonna make it prefab. Okay, so go to prefab, create a prefab folder, and select the, oh sorry, select the explosion. Okay, and drag it into that. Now it will turn out blue, basically. It now we have created copy of this game object. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to animation of this explosion. Okay, we're gonna go to animation. As you can see, we have created this effect folder, and over there we have created this if explosion animation. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna choose loop time to unchecked, or it will just looping. Okay, so that's why we're gonna unchecked. And now, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna delete from the scene view from now, or hierarchy. We're gonna show this game object or this explosion when the player dies, oh sorry, when the enemy dies. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna delete this. So we need that game object. If we go to prefab folder, so we have created this explosion. If I double click it, as you can see, so we need this game object to show up when the enemy dies. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna open up the enemy script once again, enemy health. So over here we're gonna, so double click it to open up in Visual Studio. Okay, just hold on. So if we open up that enemy health script over here, as you can see, we are destroying this dot game object means itself. Before destroying that, what we're gonna do, we're gonna show up that effect. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna make a empty game object field, and then we're gonna drag that explosion game object to this field, so we will have the explosion. So now we have to create we're gonna create public to scene inspector, and the type of that object will be game object. Okay, and we're gonna call something like explosion prefab. Okay, explosion prefab. By default it will be empty, so what we need to drag that prefab explosion game object to this field. Then we will have the game object explosion prefab. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna before destroying, we're gonna show up the explosion effect, means that game object. Okay, so what we have to do, we have to use instantiate function. Okay, instantiate function, it will take the first argument what you want to instantiate. Okay, and the second parameter, it will take the position from where you want to instantiate, and the third thing, it will take the rotation. Okay, so basically we want to show, or we want to show this explosion. We're gonna instantiate or gonna spawn this explosion prefab. And position, we're gonna choose transform to position, basically center position of enemy. Okay, and the third thing, it will take the rotation. We don't need rotation, so I'm gonna select quaternion dot identity, means no rotation. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we are instantiating this explosion prefab effect. Okay, at this point, transform dot position means the current position of enemy, and over here quaternion dot identity means no rotation. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna also need to destroy that explosion prefab or that game object, because we are just instantiating. Okay, we are instantiating the explosion prefab, but we are not destroying that. Okay, we are not destroying, we just destroying the enemy game object. We also need to destroy this explosion prefab what we have instantiated. So what we're gonna do, whatever we instantiated, okay, we're gonna put it into another game object field. Basically we're gonna put it into a container, something like that. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna do game object. Okay, game object, we're gonna call something like temp equal to this. Basically this will work out as a container. Okay, so firstly we are instantiating that game object explosion prefab. Okay, we are instantiating that explosion prefab, and then what we are doing, we are putting that explosion prefab or that game object whatever we have instantiated, we are putting into this temp. Okay, because we directly setting it temp equal to this. So we also need to destroy that container or this game object. We all also need to destroy this temp. Okay, so what we're gonna do, so we're gonna use this destroy function, and as you know, destroy function will take the game object you want to destroy. So we're gonna destroy the container or the temp game object. So firstly we are instantiating that explosion prefab, and then we are putting into the this temp. Basically whatever we have instantiated, we're putting into this temp container or temp game object, and we're gonna also delete this or destroy this temp or container game object. Okay, and second parameter, you have to specify the time. Okay, wow, when you want to destroy. Basically we want to destroy when the explosion prefab animation will totally complete, then we're gonna destroy this temp or container or this explosion prefab. Okay, so we need to assign the second parameter as time. Okay, so we're gonna go over to time this explosion prefab game object animation. So if we go to explosion, okay, just wait for to compile, it will compile for a bit. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna assign as a second parameter the time. So we're gonna only gonna destroy the time game object or that explosion game object when the animation is totally complete. Okay, so we want to show up that we're not gonna destroy the time container immediately. We're gonna show up the explosion effect, then we're gonna delete that. Okay, so just wait for to compile and you will able to see that. Okay, so if we go to prefab, okay, if we go to prefab and if we open up the explosion effect, so if we select the explosion and if we go to animation, over here as you can see it's completing the whole animation. So 0.7 f, basically 0.7 F. Okay, as you can see, for it's totally completed. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna assign 0.7f, sorry, we have to pass into this parenthesis 0.7f. Okay, so control S on your keyboard. Okay, and head again to Unity. Before destroying, we are instantiating that effect, and after 0.2 f we destroying that explosion effect. Okay, firstly we are putting into a container or tame game object, then after we are just destroying. So what we need to assign that game of explosion effect. We need to drag that explosion effect to our explosion prefab game object. You will able to see an empty field. As you can see, that is empty. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna drag this explosion to explosion prefab. Now we have this game object. Okay, if we now hit play, and if we hit 5 times to the enemy, so enemy will lose out all of his health. So before losing all of his health, it will show instantiate that explosion game object, and after point say 5.7 it will destroy the explosion. Okay, so if we, as you can see, but as you can see, transform dot position. So what we're gonna do, if we select the enemy transform dot position, basically over here we are instantiating. Basically center position of this game object is here. Okay, enemy. So instead of instantiating over here, what we're gonna do, we're gonna instantiate over here. Okay, over here. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna make a child game object. Okay, enemy, right click on enemy and create an empty child game object, and name that to center something like that. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna drag that game object, select this move tool. Okay, and drag that over here, and we're gonna choose an gizmos in inspector. So we're gonna do this. So we're gonna instantiate that explosion prefab over here. As you know, if we select the enemy, as you can see, the enemy sprite center position is here. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna instantiate that explosion over here. So as you can see, so we have created this child center. So what we need this point. Okay, we need this point. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna firstly go to enemy itself, and 0 is the first one. Okay, 0 is the first game child, and 1 is the second index. Basically 0 is the first child, and 1 is the second child. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna instantiate over here. As you can see, transform dot position, and as we know, transform dot position of enemy is bottom. So what we're gonna do, firstly we need to go to transform component itself, means the enemy game object itself, and we're gonna get access the child is, as you can see, this two. Okay, sorry, 0 is the first one, 1 is the second one. So we're gonna instantiate the explosion effect from here. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna pass 1, so we are just getting the second child. Okay, and then dot, we're gonna pass position. Okay, as you can see, now control S on your keyboard to save this and head again to Unity. You will able to see the explosion effect will show up in the over here, in the center point. Okay, so just wait for to compile, and you will able to see that. Okay, you will able to see that uh, explosion effect. Just wait for to compile. So just wait for to compile, and if we hit play, and when the enemy loses all of his health, we are just instantiating the explosion effect, and after 0.7 f we are destroying the explosion. Okay, and we are just instantiate, we're gonna instantiate from this. Now if we hit play, 1 3 2, max health becomes 2, then 1, then as you can see, it is instantiated from that center point. Okay, I hope you get the idea. So if you are new to my channel, then subscribe it for future tutorials, and if you enjoyed this video, then like this video and share it with your friends. Okay, and if you want to support me, you can support me on patreon.com. Okay, and lastly, thanks for watching.